go.
Recording in progress. That means we're doing it, and we're doing it live the way Bill O'Reilly intended. So, I'm
Papa
Zeus.
Bear.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Bolded Slugs. And today with me is my guest, Richard Snyder. Tell the people how you are, Richard.
Sup? Yeah, I'm Richard Snyder. I'm doing great. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, afternoon, whatever. I woke up late.
Fantastic. Now, I want to ask real quick, with a name like Richard, do you get when you meet brand new people, hey, Rick, hey, Ricky, they just automatically they shorten your name and they give you like automatic nicknames within 5 seconds of meeting them? Richard sounds to me like a name where that would happen. Does that happen to you frequently?
It does happen, though only one guy has ever called me Ricky for short, and I peed in that guy's laundry detergent. So
that, I think, is the one and only appropriate response. Just because you want that familiarity with people, but you also don't want them just like giving you nicknames before they've earned it. Like, who are you? Who are you, Dave? Gary? I mean, I don't want to crap on anybody named Dave or Gary. I'm sure they're wonderful people, but don't call me something that I'm not, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Richard, I want to start off right at the beginning. We're in a brand new era, I've been told, even though all evidence to the contrary suggests we're going to stay exactly the way that we have been. But we're in a post-strike world. So for you as a writer, what does that post-strike world look like for you? Is it different than the world before? Is it the same? Where are you at in your journey?
Where I'm at right now, and you know, it's gonna be a minute, I feel, before any of us really like differentiates the reality from our perception. But for now, at least for the WGA, because SAG-AFTRA, I'm following the debate on AI going on with the SAG-AFTRA contract.
That's a big deal for sure. And yeah. I don't know if you just saw this, but fake Carol Lombardini has announced her retirement.
No!
Yeah, it's a sad day. Yeah, it's all over the tweaks. I won't ever call it X by itself because that's stupid, but we're in a transitional period, man. Transitional period. A lot of things are happening or have yet to happen. So just kind of want to get the vibe. Are you the type of person that as soon as the strike was canceled, did you have 7 meetings the following day like everybody else did? Because I sure as hell didn't.
I have honestly never had a formal general meeting before.
Not one?
Nobody? Not one. Not even once.
So then we're equal there, is because neither have I, but I always thought it was because my proximity to LA is 1,500 miles to the east. You're in LA, is that correct?
Yes, I live in North Hollywood.
So have you gone or wanted to go or know anybody who has done, the water bottle tour? Because I'm always curious, like, how do you get? I've heard complicated and convoluted stories about how people have gotten meetings. They've cold queried, they've emailed, they bumped into a dude at a Starbucks and was like, do that cliche California thing where everybody has a script in their back pocket. Have you heard those stories? Are they true, or do you think it's something different?
I think it's true because I have dipshitted my way into like. Oh, by the way, can I curse on here?
Absolutely. Fuck, I don't give a shit.
All right, awesome. All right, yeah, I dipshitted my way into things. Like I did, like have a little informational lunch with an alumni from one of my alma maters who just came out here, because that's something that occasionally happens. And she got me in front of an agent once. So nothing came of it.
Oh, but did they offer you I'm going to butcher it because I don't care how it's pronounced, the LaCroix? Did they offer you the allegedly fruit-flavored beverage that is, quite frankly, it just sounds disgusting, regardless of flavor?
No, honestly, if anything, this particular agent just seemed to want to get me out of his office.
That for me feels kind of like the vibe, and I want to kind of preface this by saying it is specifically my own opinion, because boy do I have them. But I feel as a pre WGA, non-repped, non-agented, non-represented person at all, that the moment the strike was over, it really felt like good luck, kid, to those of us who, in our way, whether physically striking on the picket lines or doing things because we weren't local, it very much kind of felt like, oh, hey, you guys that we needed for 6 months to help us win this thing. We've got jobs to go back to, so screw you. Has that kind of, that's my takeaway from a lot of the things that I've been reading, especially on social media. Has that been at all how you feel? You're closer, you're local. Is that experience different?
Um, I think I've seen some of the same social media posts that you have.
The
To
circle
be
apparently is not that big. There's like 7 people that run all of the rooms, so we probably all follow the same people.
Isn't corporate consolidation great?
Right, yeah. Your half an
um,
hour lunch is now completely unpaid, and you have to have it at your desk. You fuck.
yeah, for sure. So I've seen those same ones that you have, and I definitely understand your bitterness. Um, I do feel well. I don't think it's particularly aimed at pre WGA in like specifically because like and because like I also know some I have some friends who were working writers pre-strike
Okay.
who are not right now. So as
Also,
far as
also a common theme is jobs that you had vanished. So not uncommon to hear that as well.
yeah, and if anyone in the know is listening, shout out to my buddies Zach and Leah. Please staff them.
Oh, for
But
sure. Yeah, if you want to name drop, this is absolutely the show to do it. Uh, and name drop people who you don't think want to be name dropped. I don't give a shit. Let's hype up people who need to be hyped up. That's the whole point of talks like this, is to get people the recognition. So if you want to pub somebody, like, I'll throw it in the show notes, and we'll make sure that they get unnecessary amounts of attention.
good. Yeah. I'll let's reconnect later about that because I don't want to derail this.
For sure. Oh, you're
But
assuming this was on rails to begin with. We're
that's fair. That's fair. You
I
got me
tried.
there.
I'll tell you this right now. I tried scripting some of this. I wrote down like a couple questions to ask to keep things sort of in a framework. But the idea that this is at all going to be a coherent session, that ship sailed the moment I pressed record.
Oh, that's perfectly fine by me because I am a master of derailing conversations. But overall, like, and this is it's really hard to judge because we're in the middle of November,
Mm-hmm.
and in a non-strike world, like at this point, everything is shut down or is well on its way.
Right. My
So
understanding is November 15th is the day that normally everything shut down, which was yesterday as of recording. So effectively, yeah, if it wasn't shut down before, it's likely going to be. Do you believe that, or do you think that because of the strikes that there will be more, I don't know, necessarily like announcements or like um rooms being opened up, that sort of thing. But do you think there will be more going on behind the scenes this year as opposed to any other normal uh kind of off period?
um I don't and I have like zero insider info to point to like one way or the other. I do genuinely think that the studios don't have a whole lot in in the barrel, and I think that's part of why they settled. Like they were running extremely low, especially doing zero business for like half a year, 7 months, and then they were.
Yeah, it started in March, I believe. Is that I went to public school, so math on this show is not going to at all be accurate or correct. I'm still happy that my math teacher can go fuck himself because he said I'd never have a calculator in my pocket wherever I went. And boom, here we are. So
boom. Yeah. I went to public school in Florida. So
ooh.
yeah.
Ooh. I'm gonna ask you. I'll try to remember to get back to this later, but I'm going to ask you, do you have any Florida man stories? Because those would be really good to go out on.
Oh Jesus. I think I'm that whole Pete in my room in my freshman year college roommate's laundry detergent story makes me a Florida man.
Now, do you get is that a stable gig? Because is that something that you can get maybe insurance for? It's certainly not authorized by the state, according to every news article everywhere. But
yeah, honestly, every gig I've worked in Florida has been low paying, and yeah, I've never been insured. I had to move all the way out here to get that stuff.
If you moved to Los Angeles as an improvement from Florida, what does that say about Florida? Because Los Angeles has its own fair share. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't checked. Is I-10 still closed? Is that still a thing?
The 10 is still very much closed, but here's a crazy thing for you. I've been carless for a decade. In fact, being carless was actually the word is
impetus?
The impetus. There we go.
We're writers. We know
words. I'm such a great writer. That's why I'm working tech.
Don't ask me to spell it. I don't know. I'll sound it out.
Yeah, that was actually the impetus that got me to LA, because I got in a car crash and I drove a 21-year-old Mustang, which was definitely old enough, if not to drink itself, old enough to make me drink. So
wow.
Yeah, and then I just I didn't want to deal with that shit anymore. So whatever the faults of our public transportation system here, they were far less worrisome to me than dealing with LA traffic and the bullshit of whatever beater that I could afford, and it would have to be a beater.
That's how you outsmart the game. You can't get stuck in traffic if you don't have a car. Suck it.
Yeah, there. We got 8 subway lines here. We can do it.
So let's focus back up and go back a bit, because I'm very curious about where people. You say you're from Florida. You're transplant to LA. You're right on the cusp, especially in this new. And I say new, but we can talk about whether or not it's actually new for people who aren't already established. But presuming that this is a new world for writers, and things are going to open up the way that the strikes have led us to believe that they will, where do you fit? Where do you feel that you fit in terms of the work you want to do? Are you a TV guy? Are you a feature guy? Do you feel that you want to be in one or the other? Like what essentially, I guess I'm asking, what work do you feel you are best suited to do that could potentially be of value to someone who would perhaps make it?
I guess if you put a gun to my head today, I'd say TV, if only because my most battle-ready scripts are all pilots.
Okay.
During the pandemic, I got a major. I simultaneously got a major, like a crisis of faith, and a major shift in my attitude of how I wrote, what I wrote about, what format is it in. I start like, so I was very much drinking the Kool-Aid
Mm-hmm.
Pre-pandemic. Oh, TV is hot, right? Lots of TV.
It's the golden age TV. You're not slumming it in TV anymore the way that it used to be back in the day. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, my favorite screenwriting teacher when I was in grad school was a TV writer. And he told us he told us all the, about the dream. And I bit hard. And that was, so I went to grad school in the early 2010s. I moved to LA in 2014. So I spent like a solid 6 years doing nothing but that. There's nothing in features. I'm not going to write, they're not going to tap me to write an MCU movie. So that's closed to me. That's
Okay.
not for me. Um,
Which
but
ironically is so not the case now with how many people have transitioned from Nita Costa, director of the Marvel. She started in TV,
mhm.
then went to, I believe, I forget the name of it. What is it called? Little Things, something to that effect, and then transitioned into the Marvels. I mean, you could argue that Whedon did the same thing. Not that I'm really allowed to say Whedon out loud anymore, but you get it.
Yeah, I get it. I do.
But
No,
the idea that
totally, for sure.
you could move from TV to film used to feel like there was a wall there that you just didn't cross through. I get it.
Yeah, this is pre-pandemic thinking, and this does not reflect my opinions today. Also, I co-wrote with a buddy of mine Marvel versus Capcom the movie, so I did write Marvel.
Bro, like send a brother a link for that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, we are very proud of it. We're still working on it.
Oh man. Oh, if you see the argument for IP, is a bit of a quagmire for many a writer. But quite frankly, there are some IP that are just like, how would this shit not sell itself? Capcom versus SNK, or I mean, give me Samurai Showdown from the Neo Geo circa 1995. Like, let's go. So
Yeah,
if you secure the rights, holla at your boy. That
they,
I'll definitely be there for that.
yeah. There's money in it. Like the fucking Castlevania show on Netflix got 4 seasons and a spinoff. I
I
mean,
I still have the second. Nocturne is in my queue, but yeah, the first 4 seasons were, and I wasn't a Castlevania guy playing. I mean, I think I might have played on the NES back in the day because I am that old. The gray in my beard suggests so.
oh,
But
same 1985 here.
yeah, man, that show was spectacular, and it made Dracula a sympathetic character in a show where he legit murders thousands of people.
And
That's good writing as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, especially because, like, they didn't even, they didn't really mess with anything in the mythos, which is crazy because it's Castlevania. It's
Mm-hmm.
a side scroller. You have an objective of kill Dracula, and that's really as far as it goes. And I've got like non-gamer friends of mine who really like the show who are like, you know, this is amazing. I should play the games. And it's like, the games don't have the story for this. They're good games, but you might not like them for the same reasons you like the story. And it is a pity that Warren Ellis is a piece of shit, but at the same time, like, someone else who's not a piece of shit, who has talent, can take an IP like this and go to town, and it can be successful. And
this is the kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, in the right hands, or in even just different hands,
hand.
Fair point.
I'm showing up my nubs here for the listeners.
So, but going back to what you said about Capcom versus Marvel, no, but this is great, is because you would think on the surface, I mean, you could even go back to comic book movies in general, or just different adaptations of various IP, kind of from times immemorial, is that some lend itself to good storytelling, but then some that don't are oftentimes the ones that, well, you know, if your entry into Castlevania is the TV show, I would kind of tell you to stop there, because going backward ain't going to help you. If anything, it'll confuse the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And I watched a YouTube video about the timeline of Castlevania, and just
Don't do
my
it.
brain hurt, and it was like, nope, I'm gonna stick to the animated stuff. That's much more palatable, easier to understand. But
Yeah.
when you have an IP, like, where's the story in like a Marvel versus Capcom kind of thing? And you're looking at it like it's a team up fighter game of disparate, like, Japanese inspired and, you know, Western Marvel comic bookies. Like, do you really think there's a story verse, you know, of Cyclops versus M. Bison? And I would argue you're goddamn right. There's a story
Yeah.
there. It just depends on what story you're trying to tell and how you're doing it.
Honestly, like, I've been so I've always been a big Street Fighter fan, and I've always been into like how like their fighting game universe
Mm-hmm.
is wild. I wouldn't call it necessarily well put together, but
I would not disagree with you at all.
but it's also like it's so much fun, and I've always wanted to like play around with like the characters in it. And honestly, the thing about Marvel that I don't think comes through so well in the MCU, but if you go back and read like the comics, like I went on a major kick for Chris Claremont's run of X-Men. And
I grew up in that era. Good stuff. Absolutely.
yeah. And the thing is, and I've honestly never read like classic X-Men comics before, but it's like it is wackadoodle shit. Like, you know,
it's I mean, the idea that you can get superpowers to the degree where you blink and you've destroyed either an entire solar system, or, you know, the multiverse stuff, you know, gods in space. I mean, it's literally just, well, I mean, I'm not necessarily advocating for people to go on LSD trips, but some things you discover in places you got to take a trip to get there. And the idea then that wackadoodle kind of just weird shit people emotionally attach themselves to, identify with, and relate to. Because X-Men is ostensibly, you know, it's an immigrant story. It's a story where people are othered. That's why X-Men 2 is widely regarded as the best of the bunch, because it's telling a story about different people who are searching for acceptance while also having knives come out of your hand and you can stab dudes. That's fun. Who wouldn't want to have not? Well, I don't know. Metal detectors would probably suck. MRI would be impossible.
It just harkened back to my teenage days, and I had a buddy who kept wearing steel-toed boots, and every single store he walked into in the mall set off the fucking metal detector.
So those stories, you know, where do you feel like your voice is? Because everybody's going to tell you got to find your voice, you got to have a voice, you got to say something. So if these are the types of stories that you're looking to tell, what is your voice in those stories saying?
I'm pretty sure I can say without ego, I found my voice long ago, and I can articulate that now, and it's a dark, absurdist, dystopian comedy. And that seems to be where all of my stuff lives. And even if I don't start out there, I always wind up there. It always comes back to that.
The journey of finding love in a hopeless place, you might say. I don't know if you're a Rihanna fan at all. That was a song drop. Sorry.
You're good, but I understood that reference, and yeah, I think that's a pretty astute statement for that.
Given, you know, the state of the world at large, you know, we're in the middle of I hesitate to call it anything other than a conflict in the Middle East before people start throwing shit. You've got a government that may or may not work depending on the afternoon here in the States. The climate, we're ruining it if we haven't already fucked it completely. So do you feel like it's gallows humor, or do you feel like it's catharsis? Or are those things different in your mind?
Honestly, a little of column A and a little of column B. Like I definitely like grew up on the edgelord era of cartoons. Like I I was raised on The Simpsons, Beavis and Butthead, and
the classics as they were.
Yeah. And I had a South Park phase. I honestly was watching King of the Hill right before hopping onto this call.
We all carry around some pocket sand, or we should.
Absolutely. Dale Gribble.
R.I.P. Dale.
Rip King.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and those honestly, especially the more I think about it, the more like Mike Judge has probably been my North Star for like what I do, because it is edgelord. It is, oh my God, he said that, but I don't like, I'm trying to like give it a purpose and give it a function, because I'm like nearly 40. I'm a little old just to be amazed by like, oh my God, he said fuck on TV.
I mean, yeah, and Mike Judge, because I remember when Beavis and Butthead first launched in MTV, back when music videos were a thing that you could watch on television. Hey, no offense to Rob Dyrdek. That dude is cashing checks and fucking doing ollies and kickflips off of them. But for the love of God, can we see Michael Jackson's Thriller, throwing to Whitney Houston? I want to dance with somebody. Can we do something? But Mike Judge, who may have at one time been the king of edgelord humor, I would almost argue that dude is voice of the people, because who doesn't know a guy or two that are or are not Beavis and Butthead, one of which might actually be in Congress currently, or or a guy who sells fucking propane and propane accessories. Like, who doesn't know? Like, four dudes who grew up in the same town, who lived and died in the same town. I mean, I'm from a small town myself. I could name 7 people off the top of my head who absolutely represent, any member of King of the Hill. So it's less, I think, edgelord, and it's more like just honest Americana. I agree or disagree, good sir?
I completely agree. And the proof is in the pudding. Beavis and Butthead got revived twice.
And, absolutely.
Yeah, they're on season 2.
And they had major motion picture. I have heard rumblings pre-strike, and this may or may not be accurate, that they were going to do another feature. If not, try to do a live action one. That would have been, I mean, who doesn't need TP on their bunghole from Lake Titicaca? That's a reference for most of the kids who are like, what the fuck did that old man just say? But for those who are in the know, they're giggling right now. And because
that was my middle school years, man.
Well, it was an honest assessment of just like pop culture and just what was going on. You would watch a Danzig video and you're like, yeah, musically it sounds great, but good Lord, his videos are fucking weird, or whatever it was. That's what me and my buddies at the time we were doing, is the MST3K of it all, is you just make fun of the things you see, even if you like it. And that's just, I mean, I hate to drop the D word, but that's just the discourse of things, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that was the Mike Judge was onto something very, very, poignant.
So you
in the
feel
early
that
90s.
you want to tap into that, or not necessarily be a spiritual successor, because at the time of recording, Mike Judge is not dead. So you don't necessarily need to go on in his name, but you want to tell stories and things of that nature in that vein, and keep things going. Is that kind of the vibe that you're after?
Yeah. Yeah, I like my weird stuff.
Where do you think that let's play the long game out. Let's say that you are going to get a general, and then you get a specific, and then you get into the two famous words that all writers want to hear, and that's bidding war. Where do you feel your work would be most at home? If that's a channel, if that's like, is there a company you want to work with, a prodco, a distro? Who do you think your work would feel best suited for?
To be honest, probably Adult Swim.
The old standby. I mean, I've heard that they're revamping their themselves, and they have closed down the original compound. But Adult Swim, hey, yeah, that used to be a stalwart, if it's not still, of awesome programming.
Yeah, and also like weird programming, and like there's still like maybe there's an upstart that'll challenge them. Also, hate to cut you off, but we are at a 2-minute warning here.
I am watching the clock as if I am trying to grind it down so I don't get a last second field goal to beat me. So no, we are rocking real close to the line. On that note, before we run out of time, where can people find you? Pimp your socials. Where do you most feel at home corresponding with the hench folk out there?
Honestly, these days I am not very online much. Capital O online. I spend way too much time online. But if you want to look at a bunch of reposts on Twitter, because I don't have time or inclination to really make a discourse of my own, you can find me on Twitter or X or whatever at Dead Honky, DEADHONKY. That is one word. Or you can follow my Instagram if you like old strike photos and screenshots from the Yakuza games at Shit Richard Eats. Also all one word.
Fantastic. And I thought I had a clever Twitter handle. No, you certainly are putting one in the victory column. I'm not an Instagram guy, so absolutely winner as far as I'm concerned there. Richard, I very much appreciate your time. Pointed and constructive discussion. This absolutely was. Appreciate you being on the first episode of Bolded Slugs.
Thank you for having me.
And we just like to talk BS here. Appreciate your time, Richard. Have a good one.
Fuck yeah. You too, man. Have a good one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bolded Slugs, the podcast, would like to thank our partners at filmsnobbery.com for hosting our show. Today's music is Sublime by Cam Hashari from the Free Music Archive, licensed under Creative Commons. Bolded Slugs, the podcast, is a Dapper Duck media production.